Welcome back to my virtual table talk. My name is Hayden Luz, also known as Last Round Luz on all social media platforms. I'm here with New England's own Jake the Gorilla Pilla to talk about him and his upcoming fight at Combat FC4. How's it going, Jake?
It's going well, my man. How are you?
Can't complain. Nobody listens. How you feeling coming into this fight?
Feeling good, man. I'm definitely feeling in shape. I feel like this is just a small step on the road that I'm on right now. I feel like I gotta be pretty active. I gotta kind of just stay the course, and I'm ready,
Yep,
man. I feel good.
that's it. So going back and I actually went back and watched a lot of your fights on what was available. And one of my first questions I wanted to get out of the way. Talk to the people about the black and green trademark colors that you always wear on your shorts. What's the significance behind that?
Coincidentally, it is my town colors, so those are the Borica colors. But when
Okay.
I was I went to like a technical high school, and the tech high school I went to, I wanted to make stickers that said gorilla on it. And they ended up, I was like trying to, work out a deal. And, I was back, probably 14, 15 at the time. And they had this like neon green paper. And he was
Yep.
like, if you'll take it on this paper, I'll give it to you. And I was like, done. And so the
Good
next
enough.
thing I knew, it just kind of stuck and it became my color. And it's vibrant. It catches people's attention. At the end of the day, it became good marketing, but it's just kind of how it turned out.
Yeah, for sure. No, honestly, I admire the colors too because, like you said, they pop and they really, give a message.
Yeah, it's the
And when you
was
yeah,
that?
no, what were you gonna say?
I was say, yeah, it catches people's attention, man. It makes you read the shirt. You'd be
Mhm.
surprised how much a black and white shirt won't be read compared. Like if you do the
Oh yeah,
research, it's a big difference.
100%. Especially the way your name flows. I mean, because you got names like Darren the Gorilla Till. You know what I mean? But I feel like Jake the Gorilla Pilla it just flows beautifully, doesn't it? Do you
Yeah,
want to
it's
talk about
smooth,
where
man.
that nickname kind of came from?
So that nickname kind of came from my father. He's like 6'2". My whole life, he was just a big bodybuilder and
Yep.
weightlifter, and was always in the gym, and so they always called him Gorilla. And so it's just one of those things that kind of got passed down and ended up with me, and I kind of love it. I was in a tournament one time. And the guy, I won like two divisions back to back. And the guy was like, hey, he was like teasing me. He's like, oh, if I keep seeing you up here, we're going to have to give you a nickname. And at the time, my father used to call me the Phenom. And so I won another division and I went up and he was like, oh, all right, let's give you a name, like teasing me. And so I said Phenom and he goes, no, I don't like it. And I was like, all right. And he's like, give me something else. And so I just looked over and my father was standing there and I go, what about Gorilla? And in front of everybody at at one of the Naga tournaments back when I was a kid,
Yep.
they,
Yep.
introduced me as Jake the Gorilla Pillar. And since then I was like, I love that.
Yeah,
So
100%. I mean, no disrespect, but that fits so much better than the Phenom. You know what I mean?
I agree. No, I
You
agree.
know, but so start us back from the beginning days of your mixed martial arts career. If I'm not mistaken, you started off with kung fu, and then you kind of went into jujitsu and Muay Thai, kind of like Kevin Holland. That's kind of an unorthodox start, if I may.
Definitely.
So I guess that kind of raises the question: how did you go from saying I want to kick people in the face to I want to now snap their limbs? Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's two completely different arts.
Yeah, I mean, anything from like kung fu to karate to most of it is very like point based. It's not very
Hmm.
combative.
Right.
And so when I was like 13, 14, obviously you start to get a little older. Um, you start to realize that some of these techniques might not work on a high level for real practical self defense.
Hmm.
I was just super lucky. I met Brian Caldwell when I was about 13 years old. He's my black belt to this day.
Right.
He gave me my black belt a couple years ago, but he ended up meeting me and he knew that I was like big into kung fu. And at the time, he owned like a small studio around the corner. He's like, hey man, you should come in and try jiu-jitsu, and see what you think. I'm a black belt in that. Maybe you'd have some fun. And I say it all the time, man. I went down to his spot, and at the time I was probably 13. I was like almost like a black belt in kung fu. I thought I was pretty tough. And there were guys in the room that had white belts on, and I was like, this is going to be easy. And jiu-jitsu is nothing like kung fu. And
Oh man, no.
yeah, those guys beat me up pretty bad, man. I ended up, I was a kid, man. I ended up like outside, like in the
Mhm.
pouring rain, like almost having a breakdown and how bad it was. And they beat me up, and I walked back in the room, and I was like, "Thank you, I appreciate you letting me come down and train." I'll never forget. He was like, "Hey, good job today, buddy. Same time tomorrow." And I went home, and I probably cried in the shower. And the next day, I showed up again and again and again. And now, I mean, now I've been doing jiu-jitsu, I don't know, 14 years, 15
Mhm.
years.
Yeah, I mean that's the winner's mentality, isn't it? Because like my thing is, as far as I've been in martial arts, anybody in like a kickboxer fight, anybody can get caught, right? But when you roll with those high level jujitsu guys, there's literally 0% chance that you're gonna get them. Do you know what I mean? You're always gonna get got. So that shows the mental fortitude that you have to be able to come back and always wanting to do it, especially over the duration of 15 years. So fair play to you on that.
Thank
But
you,
that
thank
kind of
you.
leads me to my next question of if I'm not mistaken, you own a gym in New England, correct?
I do. Yeah, I own Gorilla Fitness in Tewksbury, Mass.
Oh, nice, nice, Tewksbury.
Yeah.
So talk about how you balance between being a coach and being a fighter, because you hear a lot of stories that people play both sides. There are some people like say Beckzod that got offered a wrestling coach job at Harvard, but he said, "Listen, I can't balance the two. I want to be 100% fighter." And you're on the other end of the spectrum. So can you talk about how you balance that?
Yeah, so the way I look at it, man, is I don't know everything, and I'd be
Mhm.
foolish to think that I did.
I agree.
So when it comes to my school, I'm very collective in the fact that it's not just me. I run the school and I've been in gyms my whole life, so I know the culture, the etiquette. I've coached forever. I've had my black belt for years, so I enjoy coaching and I love doing it. But I brought in, my striking coaches. I brought in all of my grappling coaches, and I just started to pay them to teach at my school. And it was, kind of the easiest way for me to bring in all these great people and these great coaches that I had in my life all under one roof. And so I,
Mhm.
I always feel like I just cheated the system, man. Like the only real day of the week that I have to be there to coach is Thursday. Every other day I have an awesome coach on the mats teaching a class, and I'm there the whole time because I want to take these classes.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
I don't know,
carry
it's
on.
kind of
Sorry.
cool. No, no,
Yeah,
you
no,
could.
I mean, I mean, not to echo what you said, but it seems like you did kind of like cheat the system a little bit. That sounds like a very like the evolution. It's just a beauty of the evolution of the sport because you wouldn't have saw that 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So again, fair play to you. But with that said, what's your ultimate goal with your MMA career? Is it to do it while you can, while setting an example for your gym and your training partners, or is it go to the UFC, or is it that's where the best career option is for you, like the PFL or Bellator?
So I would say I kind of sit in the middle of like I want to keep moving forward, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of putting it on the line for my team and the people behind me, and continue to kind of be a positive, mentor for them, and someone to kind of look up to. And then as far as the career goes, man, I've cornered for the PFL, I've cornered for Eagle FC, I've cornered for XMMA, pretty much everywhere. I mean, UFC is great for their exposure.
For sure.
They definitely have, the biggest exposure you're going to get. But if you look at someone like the PFL, man, you can win $1 million in a year, and you couldn't find that in the UFC unless you're cornered. And so, like,
Exactly.
if the PFL came knocking, man, I'd love to go fight for them. Same thing if
Mhm.
Bellator came up with something good, I'd love to go for them. I think any of those bigger organizations, just to put your name in the runnings with some of the best is
Yeah.
cool. And so I don't
Hell
need
yeah.
to be the best that ever lived, but I just want to put my name in the hat. I want to kind of see
Mhm.
where I land and make a good run for it.
Yeah, and it's not like they don't have high level guys over there as well. Do you know what I mean? Just across the board, not just like just certain divisions, all across their division. There's a lot of high level talents where you could say, "Hey, I am
Yeah.
the best in the world." Do you know what I mean? So again, fair
Yeah.
play with that. But to kind of tack on to talk about your MMA career, you had 7 total fights end before the 1 minute mark, and 2 of those of which are back to back in your last 2 pro fights. What is it about your style, and more specifically about your grappling, that gives you such an advantage over these guys?
I'm very sneaky with my grappling, but it's all very fundamentally based.
For
So
sure.
I'm very big on when you do the proper technique to defend what I'm going for, you fall into a deeper trap.
Mhm.
It's kind of it's that game of chess, and so I,
Yep.
I do think that I'm very good to catch the mistake and smell the blood. And so as soon as I hit the ground and as soon as we start moving, I attack from everywhere, man. I could be on my back, whether it be in guard, side
Mhm.
control. I am dangerous from everywhere when it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, what very Charles Oliveira esque, if I may, the way you
Yeah,
change submissions together. Do you know what I mean? You go from the triangle to the armbar, omoplata. It's just very systematic, as you said, but also very high level. Do you know what I mean? There's a fine line between of fundamentally sound and high level, and you hit that high level mark. And like I said, it's not like you're fighting 20 cans either, if I may. You're fighting these high level guys with good records, lots of experience. So again, fair play to you as far as that goes. And I don't mean to kind of shine your wheels, but I mean there's a lot of good things to say about your MMA career so far.
no, I appreciate it, man. I look forward to where it's going. I've enjoyed it so
Mhm.
far. I got some cool finishes on the record. I've gone out and kind of had some pretty amazing moments. So I look to just keep that up, man. Same thing next week. I just look to go in there, go to work, do what I got to do. All respect to my opponent, and
That's it.
kind of keep it
Simple
moving
as.
forward.
That's it. And you hear guys like Bisbing talk about notes like this, right? It's like you have to train how you fight, and you fight with such a relentless pace, especially early on. come out with heavy low kicks early. You implement the wrestling early and the grappling early. So can you kind of dig us into some of the training regimens that you do to get you prepared for these high level, high pace fights that you put yourself into?
I wouldn't say I train the same way I fight. I say I train
Okay.
very new school, if I'm being honest. And so for me, like I could do an hour to probably 2 3 hour flow with somebody sparring at like a pretty good pace without throwing bombs and getting hurt and getting hit. So
Mm-hmm.
like keeping a pace like that for me in the gym where I'm not throwing 100, but the pace is consistent. When I go out there, I feel super confident because now I'm just throwing that extra 30 40% on everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I only had 15 minutes. We just went for 2 hours, so it's like
Yeah.
I have all that energy I can put into 15 minutes that once I get in there, I don't want to give anybody the opportunity for me to make a mistake. This is a game of inches. And so, just like you were saying earlier, anybody can get knocked out at any point. Anybody can get hit and get dropped. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
nature of MMA and fighting. But as soon as I take someone down, as soon as I get into that control, that better position, I feel like I take the luck out of it. I go in there at that point. There is no other option but to
Mm-hmm.
lose. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to beat whoever it is because I put them in that position.
It's kill or be killed, or as Irene Aldana was just saying this week, it's kill or kill. Do you know what I mean? There is no if and the buts. This is me, and that's
Exactly.
it. This is my octagon.
Yeah, I say it
Um,
all the time, man. The only way they're gonna beat me is if the lights fall from the ceiling and take me out because
yeah,
it's on. Like
yeah. I better slip on a banana peel because you ain't taking me out of here. I hear that for sure.
exactly.
So kind of transferring into like your MMA fights. Going back to the Shaquan Moore, I believe it was your pro debut, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
With that being a fairly competitive fight, is there any interest in running that one back, or is that more of like kind of let it be as it is and move on?
I'm not. I mean, I think he's had a couple good fights since we fought. I mean, I'm still trying to stay at 35. He was a pretty big 45er.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Again, I'm not really sure where he is with his career at all, so I don't really
Mm-hmm.
know kind of how that would stand. It's not something I'm like, oh, I look to do, but I'm not opposed to doing it. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know where
no,
he's fighting, who he's fighting for. It's kind of one of those things I haven't really give that any thought, to be honest. But
okay. No, that makes sense. It was just kind of one of those things
yeah,
I
no, I
had
totally
thought of.
get that.
But also that kind of raises a question as well, and this could just be my ignorance. Why is this fight at a catch weight at 140? Is it short notice? Can you bring any truth to that?
A little bit short notice where we were supposed to fight. I ended up getting a small injury in camp. I ended up getting injured after I had two opponents pull out for this camp.
Yes,
Um,
which has seemed
we,
to happen a lot in your career. You had 10 fights canceled, if I'm not mistaken. Fucking
yeah,
hell.
bro,
Talk
a
about
lot, man.
unlucky. Yeah,
Yeah, that's, it's the nature of the game at this point.
it
It's
is.
not always going to work,
Very
and I
Angela
know that.
Hill-esque, you know?
Yeah, you got to know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
But so I had two opponents pull out. At that point, I kind of didn't think I was fighting. I ended up getting injured. Nothing crazy. I'm fine now. We're gonna walk right through this fight and handle business, and then I'll take the summer to kind of heal up and repair whatever needs to. Uh, but it's one of those things, man. A lot of times, what I feel like Combat FC does for us is like those last 5 pounds are misery pounds, right? You can call them what they
For
want.
sure.
But I'm a 35er. I'm not a big guy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
5'7". And so they seem to take, a couple 35ers and say, hey, you guys can fight at 140. A couple 45ers say, hey, you guys can fight at 150 and leave out those misery pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they're taking like true 35ers,
Yeah,
So
no,
like,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So it's one of those things, I would love to kind of be in the running for them for a title position after this, or, depending on how this goes, obviously.
Mm.
Um, I think I've been on quite a good streak with them.
I was gonna say, why not? Four would be 4 in a row, 4 finishes. I mean,
Yeah,
what do you have to do, right?
that's what I'm hoping, and that'll be all
Mm-hmm.
up to them, and they're always good with that stuff, so I'm not worried. But it's one of those things. I mean, I would happily jump down at 35 if I need to, but
Mm-hmm.
if my opponent's a 35er and he doesn't want to cut the last 5, like that's not gonna bother me. Like, all right, cool,
Yeah,
I can focus on
sounds good
camp
to me,
more.
mate.
Yeah, yeah, like I'd be
Yeah,
crazy not to try to take that.
yeah, for sure. So I feel like somebody like Connor's, like everybody remembers what type of style you have. But what Connor says best is people remember highlights, people remember moments, right? So let me go back to the Matt Brady fight, and I see you're already grinning because you know what's coming up. Were you
I
watching
do.
like some Anthony Pettis leading into that fight, mate? Like you were clearly dominating in the grappling. What made you think to throw that hand plant kick? That was just
Uh,
absolutely mental. I watched that fight like 10 times and I tried to like wrap around my head what you were thinking, and I was like, that was absolutely mental. Best the one thing I remember you for. You were a fantastic grappler, great knee position on your takedown, landed down position, but that hand plant kick was absolutely mental. Can you kind of bring me into that?
Yeah, so yeah, that was supposed to be my pro debut. And so I really wanted to come out with a bang. The day of my weigh-ins, my opponent pulled out. And so we ended up keeping it as an AMI fight because Matt Brady was willing to take the fight.
And you took his O
So
away,
I
if I'm not mistaken, as well.
say it again.
You took his O away because he had no losses, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah. So he was also a lot bigger than I was at the time. I was fighting that fight at 135. Calvin, who's the owner of Combat Zone, called me the
Yep.
morning of weigh-ins. My opponent had pulled out. I was like 137, 38 pounds. And he was like, "Hey, buddy, stop cutting weight. I don't want you to cut down if there's no reason." And I was like, "All right, cool." So at that point, I was like, "Hey, I'm going to rehydrate to 45. And, like if we can find somebody, like let me know. Great. If
Mhm.
not, like I'm not going to kill myself to not have a fight." Uh, and so Matt Brady ended up taking it. And I came back up to probably 148. I rehydrated, was feeling good. And he ended up being like 154 pounds or something like that. So he was like way bigger than I was.
Wow.
Uh, and so when we went in there, I planned and I had told a lot of my friends and the people around me that I was going to throw that kick and that my pro debut, I waited so long, I was going to have something cool and fun and flashy. And we got in there and we were like 30 seconds in and I was like, oh, man, I was on the ground and he ended up like passing. But as he passed, I threw on a guillotine and
Yep.
I like had the guillotine and it was deep and he passed to the wrong side. But at that point, I ended up letting it go because I was like, I want to see if I can do this. I want to just
Mhm.
like see if I can throw it. The worst case scenario, it's not my pro debut. What do I have to lose at this point? Um, and so I just worked back to the feet real quick, threw a couple punches, and then was like, all right, let's do this. And it works better than I guess I thought it would have, but I practice it all the time. I mean, I hit it in my room all the time. I hit it sparring,
Interesting.
good guys. It's just, it's fun. It's funky. That's
Mhm.
kind of the style I enjoy having.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, it brings the attention along with it. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like I said, your grappling style is what sticks out, and that's your bread and butter. But when people say Jake Pilla, that's the fight I think of as that hand plant knockout because you don't see that every day. You follow what I'm saying?
Of course, man.
No,
I hope to have some more cool ones like that.
for sure. Um, so to kind of get like the cliche questions out of the way that everybody asks, talk to us about your opponent. What's he good at? Where do you think he's going to expose? Where do you think you're going to expose his holes? How does this fight go?
Yeah, I think he's going to come out throwing heavy hands. I think he's going to be trying to take my head off. I think he pushes the pace. He's going to bring the fight to me, and I think that that's hey, that's if I think that's his game plan, and I just don't know if that's the game plan I'd recommend fighting me. But that's
Yeah.
hey, shout out to him and his coaches. We'll go in there, we'll have some fun, and we'll find out. I think personally that I'm going to go out there and impose my will, and I think that in the first couple minutes of this fight, I think he's going to make a mistake, and I'm going to try to drown him in it.
Mm.
And so I have nothing but respect and truly, appreciate. And everything I've heard about him is that he's a very nice guy, and that's all the power to him. I'll buy him a drink after and
Yeah.
shake his hand before. But we're going to go in there. We both have a job to do, and I'm just going to do my job a little bit better that night. That's it.
That's it. Like poetry. So kind of just like rehash what I asked earlier there. Where do you think this fight takes you in like in a perfect way, where do you think this fight takes you? If
Um,
this fight goes the way you think it's gonna go.
I know Combat FC has another event coming in September. I know their title holder right now should be fighting for the Contender Series. I know the Contender Series is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of a lot of big things I think that could come this year, and I'd be happy with any of them. I really just want to stay consistent. My coaches and I agree that even taking this fight kind of on that last minute, what's going on, let's taking it. They just want to see me stay active right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's one of those things, man. I'd love to be, title contention for Combat FC, maybe September, maybe December, whenever the next couple are, and go in there and take a belt home. If their title holder right now is fighting for the Contender Series, then maybe putting a belt around my waist for them might put me in the right places.
For sure. Yeah, no, I was gonna say, with that said, is there any like specific names that come to mind, or is there anybody like in the UFC that you would like really like to have a fight with that you feel your style matches up well? Like anybody in the top 15?
I'm gonna be honest, man. I would love that Sugar Sean fight.
Yeah, that'd be mad,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
I
You
just,
know.
hey man, he's an awesome striker. He's super long and he's flashy and he brings like this funky style.
Hmm.
But I'm also a little bit funky, and I move a little bit different and I have good wrestling, good dominant pressure, and I think it'd be stylistically, I think it'd be a fun one to watch. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Especially the way he'll give the hips on the right hand, trying to, you know what I mean, going up against a wrestler like yourself. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things going with the forward pressure, but that kind of leads to this fight. But let me not get into that.
Yeah,
But
that's you know.
you know, but I mean, that's all I really had for you, Jake. Is there anything that you wanted to shout out, or anything you wanted to mention, or?
Yeah, definitely. So I always like to shout out my social medias. You know, if anybody's looking for all the stuff I'm doing and working on in the gym and all the fight stuff, Instagram is Jake the Gorilla. I also want to shout out a bunch of people on the team right now. I have Amber Caldwell fighting tomorrow, actually in a boxing fight. So I'll be there cornering that. The next Friday night, I'll be fighting for Combat FC on UFC Fight Pass. The following weekend, I'll have Melissa Santos fighting and Ryan Wackrow fighting for Combat Zone out of Manchester. So I want to shout out the
Busy
team.
man.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a good month, man. We're going to take a lot of W's and put a lot of work in.
Hell yeah. All right, man. Hey, it was a pleasure, and I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. You were one of my first, so it means a lot. And it was great chatting to you. Good luck, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate being on.
All right, man. Take it easy.